Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Realtor Association of Pioneer Valley's Community Hours Program, where we talk with elected leaders from communities throughout the greater Pioneer Valley area. I'm your host, Peter Ruffini, and I serve the association as both a member of the Board of Directors and Chair of the Government Affairs Committee. Also with me is our esteemed CEO, Brendan Bailey, to help us along with some color commentary. Today, we're pleased to be joined by the Mayor of the City of West Springfield, the Honorable William Reichelt. Mayor Reichelt, thanks for being with us today to talk about West Springfield and real estate.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure to be on here. I do wish we were in person, but hopefully soon.
Yes, and speaking of in person, I have to say probably when I think of West Springfield, I can't help but think of the Big E. Been going there since I was a kid, while I totally understand why it was canceled and didn't happen, it was a huge disappointment. I wish I could have gone. So I can't wait. And, I'm hopeful for this year, but
fingers crossed for 2021. Yeah, we're I think just a quick overview, pandemic mode. I think our numbers are moving in the right direction. The vaccine rollout's a little rocky across the state, but we've given over 1,000 doses here in town. So I'm hopeful that we're headed in the right direction to make it happen this year. I mean, we'll definitely be different. It won't be like the 2019 Big E, but at least if it happens, it'll be good.
Well, and I think that's actually a kind of a good segue into, obviously, COVID affected all of us personally, business-wise. It affected our communities, our schools, certainly. But I'll use the Big E as a good example of a business, if you will, that adapted. Right? They didn't just fold up the tent and say, all right, well, I guess we'll be back in a year or two. They adapted to it and found a way to still, serve the public and give people that. It was important, I think, to, give the public a means to have some relief from what was going on and help them stay in business as well.
Absolutely, it was.
So with that in mind,
even the Big E is a great community partner overall too, because we talk about the fairgrounds being there and what they can do for the community, but it's also like when they ran that test site in the spring when things were really bad. We're hopeful we can do more vaccines out of one of their buildings. It is just good for business. It's good for the Memorial Corridor, but it's also good to have that type of community partner in town.
Absolutely. And staying along the lines of COVID for a minute, what would you say were, kind of a two-parter here, what was your biggest challenge, do you think, and what was your biggest success in the past year?
I would say the biggest challenge generally has just been adapting overall to what we were back in March, where we were closed, where we would hope to be only 2 weeks, and it ended up being almost 3 months. 4 months till we started reopening again. And really the biggest challenge moving forward is schools. For us, it's all about schools. It's trying to get kids back in. It's trying to keep them safe and make sure you're educating them at the same time. And now it's trying to get them back in the building, because we recognize the need to have them back before us, the need for our economy, even that kids are in schools throughout the day. So that is one of the biggest challenges, and it's actually an ongoing challenge. That all our kids do come back after vacation on the 22nd. So I look forward to that. But in a sense, silver linings, when everyone went home really for like almost 3 months, we didn't bring anyone back until the beginning of May. I'm proud that the government still operated. We still got the taxes paid. We still got people paid. We took in payments. I mean, it was, a lot of the groundwork we had done over the years, because I hate paper, and trying to push a paperless system set us up to be in a good place in March. And we built on that with even the Zoom platform, a lot of other things that we found out we could use to make sure government's still working. And also that we talk about some of these things will be good going forward too. Another school anecdote, I was with a principal the other day, and he said a huge plus for him has been the Zoom, and they'll likely keep it going forward for their school councils. They used to have 1 or 2 parents maybe show up. Folks are busy. It's hard to find a babysitter, then go to the school, and then sit in these meetings. But to be on the Zoom and to have it, whether it be at your house or at your office, wherever it is, and be on it for a half hour, and then you can turn your camera off, but you're still listening and participate, that's huge. And he says that now he has a very active and helpful and productive school council, where before it was kind of just him with the same teacher, with the same student or the same parent all the time. So, while it's been a painful and ongoingly painful year, and this whole thing is tough on a lot of people, there are some good things that will come out of this that we'll continue to use going forward, and will kind of make government better in a lot of ways.
Well, I do agree with you on that, and I will say, and I know I speak for a lot of my fellow RAPV members in saying that we've actually seen a lot of benefits coming out of this as far as how local government's functioning and able to service the needs of the community. So, again, you talk about silver linings. I think that's one of them. And local government, compared to the other two levels of government, I think is a pretty good shining example of adapting. So hats off to that. And now we had a chance to chat briefly before we started here about the real estate market in West Springfield, and obviously inventory is low. I just looked at some quick numbers before we got on the call today, and right now there's a total of 6 single-family homes in the entire city of West Springfield. Not a lot. So, and that also comes with increased market values. And there's, as you had stated before we started, not a lot of room for additional, new construction. So, which brings unique challenges to a city like West Springfield for, continuing to grow and meet the demand of home ownership. So how do you envision that moving forward? And especially in the context of the governor's housing opportunities bill, which was recently passed?
From what we're seeing, especially the market's been good for a few years. From what we've been seeing, and explosive now. I talked to people who are like, well, I'm bidding 30,000 over asking and I'm not getting it. I'm like, well, the mayor's doing a great job in that town. But what we're really seeing is, because the market's good, like land that would otherwise remain forest or field or whatever in neighborhoods, because it's a tougher lot, it's a tougher area, it's a unique topographical issue to deal with, that would be expensive to develop and has remained undeveloped. We're starting to see them go into those areas and build. Now that there's smaller subdivisions, maybe 10, 15 houses, but we're seeing more of that pop up. And even then, I used to think was there's not much developable land left, and I still don't. But because of the willingness, and because the market's good and the willingness for folks to pay to live in West Springfield or any community, we're seeing more developers kind of look at new and unique areas to kind of put a few houses in here or there. And it just goes to show that the land itself is expensive in West Springfield. So the willingness to do that shows, and the houses sell like that, that there really is a strong desire and a big lack of inventory. I mean, I have people text me often to see, what's the price to sell your 2 families? What's the price to sell your 2 families? I got people that'll overpay. And it just goes to show like how good the market is now, but also to your point, how kind of under inventoried we are. A thing we're careful about is, while we don't have a ton of developable land left, the additional 10, 15 houses here or there do usually come with kids. And we are one community, I think, west of 95, or the only community west of 95, that has seen a steady increase in our student population over the past 10 years. This year obviously being different because folks pulled their kids out. It's a pandemic. But before that, we're the only community that's gone up. Everyone else has either stayed flat or gone down, which is good. The downside being that our schools are kind of bursting at the seams. So we're always, in a way, it's good that there's not a ton of land developed and built, because we don't really have the school capacity right now either. So we kind of are in that little catch-22 of, we want to grow and attract more people here, but at the same time, we want to be careful how we make that happen, so we don't have all of a sudden a requirement to build a new school or 35 kids in a class, which is frustrating too.
Yeah, ironically here, we finally got a housing bill passed in the state to ease the shortage of homes, and now we're faced with a shortage on the construction material side because of all the lumber shortage from last year, which doesn't look like it's going to change much this year. But anyways, it's still great to have that in place. But one of the other things that's come out of COVID is, we talked about schools and personal life, but on the business side has been really a change in the workplace, people working remotely. And yes, some people have come back, but kind of rethinking that space, because for the longest time, it was a push towards the open floor plan concept. And now we're regressing from that. And so you see a lot of commercial use properties kind of looking to repurpose themselves in various different ways. And one of those ways is also the mixed use concept, right? Smart growth, where we incorporate residential and retail and commercial. How do you think West Springfield is set up to adapt to that? And do you see current zoning as, hey, we're set up for this, or do you anticipate maybe some changes down the road?
So it's mixed use is something we've talked about for a while. We don't have a ton of areas where we see it happening, but definitely in our downtown, and I say our downtown because there's not a lot going on down here. But we did have a new landlord, a new owner buy the old United Bank building, which was connected to us on Elm Street, and who is very progressive in their thinking of attracting new business and being open to new ideas and bringing folks downtown. So I think with them as an anchor tenant, we're going to see a lot more happen down in our downtown where mixed use is allowed. But we're also making some smaller changes to our zoning ordinances to encourage, like on a Main Street or Union Street, where there's naturally a mixed use, but a lot of it's non-conforming because it's been there forever or was illegally changed. And it's good. We want to encourage more of that. So that is something we are looking at. There's not, and again, while we're a city, we're a smaller scale city, so there's not a ton of those types of things. And a lot of our zoning is a hard split between residential and commercial, with a large section being residential. And partly that is because, our commercial is along the east and south sections of town. So along east on Riverdale and south on Memorial Ave, and then a little cut in with Riverdale Road. But for the most part, it's kind of segregated on its own. So it kind of doesn't really, and besides our downtown and Main and Union, there isn't a lot of areas that would prove that good for that whole idea of like the living on top of your work type of thing. We do hope some more of it can happen, because there is some cool stuff that we think can happen on Elm Street. And I think that the housing choice changes will help us with that as well. But unfortunately, we're not as large to see. Like, I would love to have land to go in and be like a fresh development. This is what we're going to create, like a planned utopia. But that's not going to happen in West Springfield.
No, good insight on that. And one of the things that we like to do, and one of the reasons we like to do these conversations, is to make you aware that we do have a lot of resources. Oftentimes people think realtors and they think, oh, you can help me list and sell property or help me buy something. And yes, that's true. But we also have, we're a conduit to a lot of great resources, both through our state and national association for, as I had mentioned, smart growth, helping with zoning changes. And a lot of times on the consultation side of things, like evaluating situations, hey, we'd like to do this, what are our options, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and really helping to get involved in community planning, because not only do we do business in the various towns within the greater Pioneer Valley, but we live there too. So we're residents as well, and we do take a vested interest in that. So, just wanted to make you aware, we do have resources available. So to the extent that, and we love to partner whenever we can with different municipalities for their initiatives. And I'll also let you know, we do have different grant programs available as well. We have micro grants, placemaking grants. For example, we did this is probably going up about 5 years ago or so now, but dog park, we helped funding for that then in your neighbor to the south in Agawam. And Brendan, refresh my memory, our most recent grant was on the east side of the river, but the nature trail.
Oh yeah, so we actually just had a sensory nature trail that we were part of the funding for in Belchertown, really taking apart a land that wasn't used, but it was integral to the community. So now it's something that can be used by all the residents. And actually, as of yesterday, we just got notification that we did get some funding for East Hampton for a placemaking grant for them, for their kind of multi-tier downtown that they're trying to revitalize. art space that you can walk through to get from one section of downtown, because they're kind of split up into different nodes essentially, which is really exciting. And yeah, Peter's exactly right. We have tons of resources. One of the big things that we can really help with is what's called our land use initiative program. So if there's ever, something that you're specifically working on, or maybe, a part of the government, whether it's, planning board or whoever the case may be, and trying to figure out what the best way is to move forward, we have a kind of a team behind us in our state association, our national association, that can do analysis of a lot of these things to figure out, hey, what's happening in other parts of the country, how's this been done before, and that way we can work together and come out with a solution that's going to be beneficial to all. So it's a really nice program. And then one of the biggest things that we have, and is really important for right now, is housing opportunity and fair housing grants available for running programs and educational pieces, things like that. It's a really great resource for not just us to help you guys, but for the city as well, to help the residents, make them aware. You can also get into doing things like first-time home buyer programs, educating citizens about what resources are available to them. So it's a lot, and our thing is, the more that we can make it plug and play for you and everyone that works with you, that's the best way. Give it to you, hey, turn around, give it to your citizens, and that way everyone can help each other. So a lot of great stuff out there.
Awesome, I love it.
Yeah, and I'll just add, we try our best to make sure our members are aware of this, and that's where that's where the genesis of most of these grants come from. But our goal is to also let you guys know in town and city government as well, because we don't care where the ask comes from. We just want to make sure that we're really making an impact and helping a positive impact on people's lives with these things, and they're great tools. So yeah, I unless you have anything to add, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for your time today. We know you have a very busy schedule, even though we have Zoom. Greatly appreciate your time. And again, we look forward to partnering with you any way we can in the future.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Good to see you guys.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.